Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first ever Alliance online live stream with YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We wanted to try to do this on a new platform, give everybody a chance to be able to join from mobile devices, be able to pause, and all those kinds of things. Today is our Q3 Alliance event. We didn't actually do one over the summer. The timing didn't quite work out right with everybody in the world being on vacation for most of the summer, not only here, but with most customers as well. But thank you for joining us today. Josh Levitsky is with me today. He's the head of professional services and training here at FileWave. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Tony Keller. I'm the VP of product here at FileWave. All right, and what's our agenda for today? So mostly today, we're going to talk about an upcoming version of FileWave, version 16.2. We should be going to early adopters with that pretty soon. We're going to talk about how you're going to know when we go to early adopters here in a minute. But mostly we're going to talk about all the features, and there's a lot of features in version 16.2 that are coming up. But I did want to mention supporting events. So we're doing this in a new format, and people will be able to, of course, chat in YouTube and add comments and such. But it's not quite as interactive as other formats we've done before. So what we are going to use is our Discord events for follow-up. So if you've got questions for the team, if you've got questions for me, if you got questions for Josh, if you want to talk to our product owners, you want to talk to our professional services folks, we have events in German-based events. We have open office hours the professional services team does. We have our PO lounge where our product owners meet with folks. Please come to those events. We'd love to see more of you there. And that's a real opportunity to have a lot of real quality time with us. So please do join us for those events. And I do want to call out a special event on October 22nd. We've got an event with our partner, Truce Software, for the Truce Family Solution, which is a solution for those of you who are in schools for managing student-owned devices in the classroom to make it so they're basically just phones when they're at school, and they can do all the other stuff when they're away from school. So during school hours, there's some control, and otherwise it's just a normal phone. It's a parent, student, teacher relationship there. So it's kind of a side thing. If you're interested on that, October 22nd, there's kind of a placeholder event there now. More details will be forthcoming on the event, but we do ask you to join that if you're interested. So in 16.2, though, we're going to talk about a whole lot of things. The first thing we're going to talk about is, of course, in a little bit, Josh is going to talk about the things that we've done to support the new releases from Apple for the fall here of 2025. But first, Josh is going to talk about some other changes that we've made for the Apple platforms within FileWave 16.2. Josh, over to you.
Okay, so let's just, we're just going to practically go through all the functionality that's in this release. There's probably one or two things that we'll miss, but these are kind of the major highlights. So the first thing is, and I think people will like this quite a bit, partial profiles. So you will see when you go to edit a profile now, that these look different. It's not simply an on or off checkbox. So if I want to turn on allow use of camera, that's on. If I want to disallow FaceTime, that's off. In the middle, it's just a neutral setting. It's not applying. So if I was to save this, then the only thing that's really in the profile are these two settings. All the unset things are not set. So no longer will you need to consider every last option. I know this was frustrating with profiles that, you know, when you make a profile, there are many, many, many options, and you only usually care about the specific things that you want to set. So now you can specifically set certain options. The editor this way is in Central. In Anywhere, you can open it up, and I will show that. So I just change that, right? And let's keep in mind when I edit this payload, I go back, camera's on, FaceTime's off, right? So if I go in, oops, if only I use the right password. It was here. So camera was on, so you can see it's checked. FaceTime was off. Technically, unchecked is off. It's not that same granular three pane thing, but if I was to allow photo stream, for instance, and then save, and then come back here and edit this again, you can see PhotoStream did get enabled. So you can't do sort of that disabled value. But if you open up a profile in anywhere, you're not going to break things. We considered that. So this is pretty cool and should make it much easier to know what's in your profiles that you're sending.
Josh, can I ask a practical question?
Yeah.
How does that change how I might apply restrictions to devices and environments, compared to the way that I've been doing it up until now?
Well, if you think about one of the other things that it makes me think of another profile that I'm going to use in this example, that I have Apple Intelligence for iOS, right? So let's say at my school or company, we just want to have Apple Intelligence things off for whatever reason. So I could have this restriction profile that focuses just on Apple Intelligence options being off. And you can see things off. And I could just apply this without having to consider other things. This can be my Apple Intelligence focused profile that can be just applied to everybody. And then I could make, maybe like a teacher's set of restrictions that just focuses on certain things I want to enable or disable.
So that means for like students, if we wanted to allow or disallow camera, right? I
Yeah.
can make that a granular profile now instead of it being included with all sorts of other settings. I could just
Yeah.
make that individual one tiny little piece of a payload and really only have two of them. One is allow and one is disallow. And then I could just assign that to groups, kind of more dynamically than I could do today, right?
Yep.
That is a great addition, if I do say so myself.
Yeah. I think it will really help because in almost everybody I've worked with, having to think about all the checkboxes, and then also if you think about it, so Apple will add more possibilities. We then add more possibilities. And if I created this profile, 2 years ago, and then I go to edit it, there's new things in there that now I'm forced to consider. In the past, I'd be forced to consider whether I want to turn the things on or off when I only really care about, a handful of specific things that I want to restrict. And this lets you just focus on those things. So there's that, and there's some other good things. So in um, restrictions, partial profile, here is media content. So I'm going to show a few places to look for new things. So media content on Mac OS has support for Mac OS 15 plus. And there is a web content. So on the web content filter, for URL entry, it's improved. And there are network relay gets a couple of new options. So, and you'll notice that we're using this sort of that new thing here, and kind of nice. We considered color blindness. That this and beyond color blindness, just that an X is obviously disabled, a check is obviously enabled, and that the colors we went with. We're hoping that this all works out for everybody, and so now you can choose whether there's failover. It's a new thing. You'd only really care about this if you use the network relays profile, obviously.
Hey, Josh. there was
Yeah.
a there was a question in the chat, and Emma's already answered it, but we'll consider this kind of a test. If you set a payload restriction like camera on and camera off, and both things go to a device, with which thing wins?
I have not tested that specifically, unless somebody like PN was in the chat, but I would guess that the most restrictive would win is usually the way it goes, because it would act. Oh, and Emma said the most restrictive. I
Yes,
just looked at
yes,
the chat.
you passed the test. Okay.
Because we had that before where you'd have two full restriction profiles
Yes.
with lots of things set, and both are applied, and you'd have to think about what the restrictive things were in it. So now much easier. So so then what else? So then DNS settings. The on-demand and failover option, and then VPN profile uses on-demand rules. So the VPN, did I not make that? I didn't make that, but there is. So the VPN profile uses the same on-demand rules component that DNS settings uses, and in DNS settings, that was where there's this on-demand rules. You'll notice this doesn't have there are a couple of options that you'll see with these new things where there's not an in the middle, like where you don't get to pick that it's not set, because for this type of profile, it really needs to be set or not set. And there's a new on-demand rules editor, and that's also present in some of the other profiles that are updated.
Hey, Josh, this configurable profile thing or modular profile thing, is
Mm-hmm.
it applied to all types of profiles right now?
Not all types of profiles. So in particular, the list on my screen are the ones that saw enhancements. So you'll probably see that triple select, that new way of seeing it. It's not everywhere because it's a lot of work to go through. And so the biggest impact ones were done, like restrictions on
Yeah,
iOS,
I think
restrictions on Mac.
restrictions are likely to be the one that most folks
Yeah.
use. Well,
Yeah.
cool.
But
Anything else here in this bit of Apple content before we go back and talk about more fall release topics?
really just, and I opened it already, was the Apple Intelligence. For macOS and iOS, you'll see a lot of checkboxes. There's about the writing tools, Safari summary, Mail Smart replies, notes transcription summary, like all the AI things, including the things that may be in version 26. So when you go through here, you're just gonna look for the things that you want to turn off, and you'll see this one's slightly different. This is the Mac OS restrictions where it has the multiple tabs, and you'll see I've turned off some of the AI stuff. So that would be the last bit, is all the little AI keys.
All right, super.
And so should I? Are you going to talk about language now?
I am. I am, as a matter of fact. So we're going to transition over to me sharing here for a moment. And I forgot to mention before, just in the format of this, we're not trying to necessarily meet any kind of time frame for this. If we go beyond an hour, that's fine. And if we go through pretty quickly, that's fine as well. We're going to be unhurried and kind of cover these topics. But the next thing we wanted to touch on were translations. We have always provided the product in English primarily, but we are a multinational company. A lot of folks think, because Josh and I do a lot of the talking on these events, that we're American based. That's not at all true. We're all over the place. There's a contingent of us in the U.S., the contingent in Bosnia and Germany, in Italy, and the Netherlands. We're all over the place. We've always been that way, even pre-COVID. We're a remote first company, and we've always had some degree of translation in the product. Up until now, we've had Japanese, Korean, Chinese, and German, I think. I might be missing something. But we've added a number of new languages and given you options within the product now to select what language you want. So here within FileWave Central, if we go into preferences, you'll see a new option on the local settings tab. By default, the system is going to default to the system language, whatever the OS is set to in Central. But you'll see we've added a number of additional translations. We've added Dutch, French, Filipino, Spanish, Swedish, Thai, and Turkish. So we've extended that by use of an AI tool for helping us do initial translations. Now, those translations are not perfect because they are AI based. So we're looking for your help with this. If you have feedback, you may think, Tony, you're such a smart guy. I'm sure you're also a polyglot. Well, I assure you, I am not. I barely speak English, let alone any other languages. So we're not native speakers in a lot of these languages. So if you have feedback, you'll notice shortly when you open a support ticket that there's a new option for providing translation feedback. So if you see something that's translated oddly, and generally what we see with AI translations is that when something translates, it's usually the right word but the wrong context. So for instance, we had some feedback on a German translation that was translating the word release as to be like released from prison instead of like a software release. So any feedback like that you want to give us, that is super helpful to us. So you can open tickets and tell us about those translations, and we can make those changes in the next thing. So by default, it uses system language, but if you don't like if you speak Swedish and it comes up for you in Swedish and you don't like those translations, you can simply come in and specifically choose that you want it in English. That picker, this language picker, is both in Central here and also in FileWave Anywhere. So on the login screen for Anywhere, the browser uses the browser default language, but again, you could choose any language. So if we go with French, you're going to see that it reloads the page, and now we've got the login in French, and we can go ahead and log in and see the solution in French as well. And here we go. Where you get the translation of various things. And there's some things that we, like file sets, we use as a keyword for us, so we don't translate that. But you see the basic case here. So we're doing language translation, lots of new languages. And if your language is included and you'd like it, please do let us know. And let us know about any fixes for translations as well, please. So Josh, I think, is going to pick it up now and go back and talk some more about some more changes on the Apple front.
Hello again. So in this new version, we're officially supporting macOS 26, iOS 26, tvOS 26, which released yesterday. However, we already had basic support based on the betas in 16.1.1. So if you're on 16.1.1 today, you've seen that you can enroll macOS 26 devices betas and what it became the final release. So you should be fine, but you'll get all these new features when 16.2 releases. And you can see in here I have my Tahoe machine. This is a iOS 26 tablet in here. And we've made some changes related to, well, actually not related to 26, but something that we should have maybe done in the past, because, Apple hasn't called DEP in a while. It's actually ADE. So now you'll see ADE. Although if you speak with anyone from Apple, they probably still say DEP just like I do, because it's habit. It's been DEP for so long. But you will see ADE for the wording everywhere in the console where it did say DEP before. Let's see. There is also another change related to this. So if I go to Preferences and I go to VPP and ADE, you're going to see a new option in Preferences in 16.2. So you're going to see this will say MDM Trust Chain or MDM Certificate. So the way FileWave before 16.2 was, it was on MDM Certificate. You wouldn't see that. This text didn't exist, but it was doing certificate, where the enrollment profile that would get sent to a device would include more stuff. And it was a pretty secure way to do it. Apple has said that Trust Chain is good enough and resolves a problem that people would have. So if you've ever experienced in DEP profiles, now ADE profiles, if you ever experience seeing a duplicate profile here, so like suddenly I have demo and then a second demo one, and maybe some of my devices are attached to the first one and some are on the second one. That was because when you include all the certificates for the server and we talk to Apple, we have to sometimes, there are cases where we have to update the profiles, and sometimes an error will be thrown. And what happens is whatever got moved to the new one is moved, and the other ones are kind of sitting on the old one. Um, and in speaking with Apple, if we move to this option of the trust chain instead of having the certificates, we should not run into that problem. So it would make that problem go away. But we left it as an option to do certificates in case somebody had a specific requirement where they really wanted to have that sort of more secure version of the enrollment profile.
So basically, that means that the DEP profile won't change as often, right? And
Well,
therefore
yes, it won't
need
change as
communicated to
often,
Apple,
which
right?
is how
Yeah.
that issue was creeping in, because there would be an issue with the API talking to Apple, and it would send an error correctly, but it would result in a partial move of devices where you're supposed to get all the devices to move.
So if we're
I believe.
changing the profile, less frequently for each and every device, then less options for failure. Then, right?
Yeah.
If it's working, don't break it.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right.
So that trust change should become the default in 16.2, and you can change it to certificate if you want. Um, So now on the DDM side, I wanted to show something that I didn't have on my list, but I thought we probably should show it because Tony and I talked about it yesterday. So here's a device, right? And you're probably used to going to command history and seeing what's going on with devices. More and more things are going to use DDM for Apple things, right? And DDM is such where there is a defined declaration, like a list of things that the device should do. And this is the list of things the device kind of acknowledges or realizes that it should do. So if I make a change and the device is offline, these two lists won't match. Now, this is a short list in my lab, but the more stuff you have, the bigger this list would be, to the point where it could be hard to find something. And you'll see on my Mac where I hit Command F, and on Windows Control F. But now I can look for something like battery, right? So I can find battery health, for instance. So that find, which doesn't show right now by default, can help you in searching long lists of things. So I just wanted to point out that is new here, but you might notice it in other places. Okay. And aside from that, I'm going to show off some new DDM configs, because as DDM becomes more and more of a thing, there will be more configs, and you'll see them do either replacements for things we did in profiles or new things that weren't even possible in a profile. So you can do Safari settings now. There's a bunch of Safari settings that are here.
Well, and we've gotten kind of comfortable with the idea of things being based off of MDM commands and looking at those commands and seeing what's happened. So this is also going to change troubleshooting to a great degree, right? When we're looking
Yep.
at DDM, the way things apply is different. So a lot of things will just kind of happen pseudo magically behind the scenes.
Yep. And we have Safari bookmarks. We have audio accessories. You may have, if you watched Apple's announcements, things like allowing temporary pairing of audio accessories, which might be cool in a school. I think of my son when he goes to school and they use iPads, but they use their own headphones. Then you can lock down the device, but maybe his headphones compare to the iPad. So you can set that. So those are new. There's also, through DDM, we can pull for certain things. And battery health is one of them. You saw when I looked at that DDM config and I looked for battery, there was something there. And it's because, and you won't see it showing an actual health for me. This is still a good example. So if I go to device details and I look for battery,
It's
you'll
my
see
my fault, really, because I didn't okay your budget request to buy a device that supports this. So this is on me that this doesn't, show you the actual battery health, because his iPad is, more than 5 minutes old, so it doesn't support this. But
Yeah, but it's still, this is a valid, for many people you will see unsupported, because it's really some high end devices from 2024 and devices from 2025 that would have it. But we have it and we're stepping into it. And if you're curious about what the values are, there's this article that I will put in the live chat, and this article that can help you with knowing, and there'll obviously be KD articles, but these are, straight from Apple about what is supported for this. And I should say, you'll see it in the article, but there are specific values. So you'll see normal, service recommended, unknown, unsupported, non-genuine. So I would say you're probably looking for this service recommended, and because it's an inventory item, you can actually make a query or report to list all the devices that have service recommended. So as you get new devices and they start to have battery issues, you can identify them pretty quick. So that is battery health, which comes thanks to DDM, and that was the last item in my new stuff in this section.
all right, well, let's switch back over to me. And we're going to talk about another. We've got so many great things. We really love the stuff that we get a chance to show you here today. And although Josh and I have the honor of being the ones to represent it here, of course, none of our work went into building these things. So kudos to the team who's actually the ones building all of these different things. But you may notice a couple of things that are different here in my admin. Primarily these little notifications. So you may have noticed, any of you that are on 16.1, you actually got a notification in your admins about this event. Well, that was our first step into adding some notifications, and that is what we're calling kind of a FileWave notification, where we can send you a notification about events or maybe a 0-day thread or things like that, things that we deem are really important. But on top of that, now we've added a layer of notification of system level notifications, and we're really happy with this. But I will also say this is only the first step. We really think this is going to grow. So right now you'll see in my admin that we're getting notifications for model updates. We're going to expand this a little bit. Right now it only shows the last model update. Josh, if you want to go ahead and update the model, you'll see how that actually reflects in my admin as well. Of course, we always see that the model's updating. But I'm going to get a new notification as well that tells me that Josh has updated the model to 91. We're going to tweak that a little bit more to do some more stuff, but you'll see that there are other notifications in here too. There's release notifications like the ones we talked about before. This is the older one for 16.1.1, but we'll see those in that tray. And you can also see that we get now notifications about new Windows software updates. And that concept is new as well, that there is a concept of new software updates. Josh and I are going to talk more later about some of the enhancements to software updates. But if I click on this notification, it takes me directly into the software updates view and shows me all of the updates that have come in as air quotes new in the environment. And new is defined as anything that I haven't dealt with yet. I haven't looked at it. I haven't done anything with it. We're going to talk about this software update stuff in a little bit. So we've got those notifications, and we really like this feature. Josh and I, especially as we started testing in version 16.2, we're like, okay, how exactly is this going to work? And we started realizing that there were all these things that we wanted to see happen in notifications. We've always had that audit history where you can see who was doing what, but this is like a real-time version of that. So what we envision in this list is that it'll say, hey, Josh created a new file set, and this is the file set. Or, already it will show that we don't have any certificates that are expiring, but if we had one expiring, it would show in this list. And so those notifications are great. We've also added one additional notification up here in the client's view. You may have noticed the little red bell on new client, and we can dismiss these as well. So if we look at that it will clear the bell. The same goes for new clients. So we've always had this thing where clients could come in and be in this kind of quarantine. So in this environment, when you click on that, you can see that I've actually know without going in there that there's a new device awaiting enrollment. So I can come into this view and see that there's a device that's awaiting enrollment. I can select that and then go ahead and add that client. Now today it did clear for me immediately on that, and the device comes in. So that notification tells me, hey, there's new devices, because before, they could sit there and hide for quite some time. So we're super happy with this notification channel, and we really think we'll be using that for a whole lot more types of events, and eventually make that configurable as well. So maybe you'll see only the types of notifications that you want to see. But we're really excited about this feature, and we see it having a lot of potential for future use. And pardon me. I think that's. Were you going to chime in there, PM?
Yeah. Oh, I was going to chime in and say that if you go to File, you'll see you can show the new accounts page, right? Instead of preferences, the account ... there,
Yeah.
right below preferences.
Uh-huh.
Did you show that? Because I didn't.
I did not. I forgot totally about it. I meant to and did not. So this is where you'll be managing these preferences for yourself. And these are administrative-based preferences for things. So as we get more granular with content, so maybe we start doing things about Apple-specific stuff. We haven't yet. Or we're sending out notifications for Windows, for instance. And you don't manage Windows, maybe you don't want to see the notifications from us about Windows. You can turn those things on and off. So this is going to get more granular as well, so you can control those things.
Yeah, and we can. There might be notices specific to hosted customers, so you see hosted at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you felt like a particular thing like news was something that you would prefer just not to see in console, you can turn it off, and it's per admin. So Tony could turn off news and Josh could keep on news if I want.
Correct. Perfect. And I think that's everything on notifications. And Josh,
Yeah.
I think you're going to talk a little bit about a new kind of onboarding smart group, aren't you?
I am. So, when we've worked with people, new customers, and they're working out how devices are going to come into FileWave, right? And when I think about schools in particular, you're mass enrolling things pretty quick and trying to get them set up pretty quick. But some corporations too have, they buy things in cycles, and they maybe have a lease program, and they have to enroll a whole bunch of devices all at once. And in the past, if you wanted to have, let's say, a series of smart groups that would cause things to get added to devices, there was always a problem that it would take 10 minutes, for smart groups to reevaluate by default. If I go over here, this 10-minute refresh interval. And so sometimes people would turn this down to a lower number, but that would cause performance issues for your server, because then every smart group is evaluating things much more frequently. When you only really want to speed up one or two smart groups, you have a couple of smart groups that are specifically for enrollment, and the rest should be just steady state. So you'll notice that there's this fast smart group refresh that's set to 1 minute. So this would be the default: 10 minutes on normal smart groups and 1 minute on fast smart groups. And it is super easy. And I'll just show you this practical example where I did this for my device type groups. Now, this is not probably how you would use it, because, well, you might use it for an all thing if you have file sets assigned to every last Mac and you want them very quickly to end up in this all Mac OS group.
I would
So if
think
I
you
go to,
might, use student or staff
yeah,
or department. If you're in a company that it might be department based, you might have some things, because this is really going to speed up the onboarding of new devices, right?
yeah. So you might have, some people have a file set, that installs something that, you know, some people use API to update values. Like when something installs, it calls an API and updates on the server. And so now some field was set on the server. and now in 60 seconds it'll update. If you think about it, if you had 3 smart groups that were related to enrolling a device, and devices moved through those 3 smart groups as part of the onboarding process, today it would take 30 minutes to work their way, right? 10, 10, 10. Well, yeah, more or less 10, 10, 10. But with this, it could take 3 minutes. So you could be much faster. We had a customer that specifically asked for this. And you can do 3 smart groups. You can't do more than that because if every smart group is set to fast, then then it's going to burden your server, and really no smart group would be doing so well. So let's say I want to turn this on, right? And I don't know if I already have 3 or not. Well, I do know, but if I hit OK here, you'll see I already have 3, and it tells me which 3, so that I can make a choice to turn it off for one of the others. But all you have to do to make a smart group be faster is have this checked, and then every 60 seconds it would evaluate who goes into this. So you might have other use cases. Not just enrollment use cases, but maybe you're doing some sort of updates and you want it to go faster. And you can change which 3. You don't have to use 3. You could use 1. But up to 3, you can just choose at any time which ones they are and turn them on or off.
Yeah, there was a question in the chat about that, but yes, it's limited to 3, and that's to basically prevent you from killing your own server, right? Yeah. Because we can't evaluate that many things, so you want to group them, whatever those workflows are, we'll group them in some kind of logical workflow. But I can very much see this being, hey, we need to prioritize getting the VPN client there before we install, Google Sheets is not nearly as important as a VPN client when we're onboarding a new employee. So we want to prioritize that. And we're only sending that VPN client to people that are in IT or finance. So let's make a smart group that says if they're IT or finance, and let's make that one actually evaluate very quickly. Right. So yeah. You're going to have to build your workflows, and you're going to have to think about it, and probably want to write it down on paper before you start to build these, but you are limited to 3 so that you don't, take all of the world's energy on one server.
And you can, in settings, adjust things. So for instance, maybe your normal smart groups you want to be at 20 minutes instead of 10. And maybe you want these fast groups to be at 5 minutes instead of 1. You can change both of those settings like I showed in preferences.
Not only that, but even with your clients, I think this is unrelated to 16.2, but just while we're on the topic, if you think about the default behavior for Mac and Windows clients with FileWave is that every 2 minutes they're reaching in to see if there are any changes. But is every 2 minutes really required for the changes that you're making in your environment? Is 15 minutes okay? Those are the types of adjustments that you can make in the configuration of your devices that will really actually improve performance overall. Because if you think about it, if you've got all your Windows, and if you've got 10,000 devices and you got all your Windows and Mac clients checking in every 2 minutes, but you're only making changes 2, 3, 4 times a day, does it really have to evaluate every 2 minutes? Does it matter that you distribute everything new within 2 minutes versus 15 minutes? Likely not. So you could actually consider relaxing that restriction as well, or that default behavior. So sorry.
Yeah, you can easily do that with a super pref, which
exactly
we won't talk about here, but we won't go into detail here. But super prefs can be how you can change that tickle interval for devices pretty easily in mass. So then, Tony, you were going to talk about patching things, I believe.
Was that what I was going to talk about? Because I didn't look at the agenda, and now I forget. Oh, yeah, we're going to
make a policy. So I'll switch over to your sharing. You ready?
You're right. Let me switch over to my sharing, and we're going to talk about some of the changes with software updates. There are actually 3 significant changes with software updates here in version 16.2. Of course, we've made a lot of changes in 16 and 16.1. Particularly on the Windows side, we made a lot of changes. We've made some more changes that are related to Windows, and we made some changes that are global as well. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is patching automation. So ways in which you may want to do patching. You may want to automate patching. Maybe you don't want to think about it at all. And generally, this would not be our recommendation as kind of IT best practice. Josh and I, in particular, really like to test patches before we go to say production with them. But if you know that there's something that you're okay with deploying in your environment, and you just want to deploy it, and you don't want to mess with file sets, and you don't want to mess with anything, you just want to say, hey, every time this thing comes out, I want to deploy it. We've got this new concept called a software update policy. So I'm just going to look at all updates here for a moment, and we can see, there's all sorts of things that have come in this environment, and you'll see that I've got some updates that are this cumulative update. So I'm going to look at that real quick. Cumulative, I actually spelled that right. And I can see that I've got a couple of flavors of those cumulative updates. Well, maybe I don't want to automate updating a .NET framework, but maybe I do want to automatically deploy cumulative updates for Windows 11 when they come out. I don't want to think about it. I just want it to deploy. I don't want to build a file set every time and assign it to my beta group and then my production groups. I just want this to happen, and I don't care about reporting on it from a file set perspective or any of those things. Of course, in this view, I can go and look at this patch and see, hey, it's cumulative update for Windows, and I can see that it's a reboot file set and it's considered a security update. It's not considered critical. Well, now we've got a new type of file set for doing this deployment, and it's kind of a set it and forget it file set of a very special type, and it's adding on to our concept of policies. So I'm going to create a new policy. So I'm going to go into file sets, and I've done this recently, so it shows in my quick list, but also it's going to show under the general tab for FileWave related stuff that I can create a policy. And if you haven't used policies, there's other stuff that you can do in here. We really love blocker scripts. For Android, you can do geofencing, and you can kind of style your kiosk as well. But this is the new thing that is Windows specific that we've added here, a specifically Windows software update policy. And so if we configure that, we can see that we can build a rule, right? And that rule is going to look very similar to what you would do in a report or a smart group. And in this case, because it leads, if we went back and looked at that patch name, although I thought about this ahead of time, so you'll see that I put it in here, it actually started with a month, a year and a month. And we can't really automate that rule, but I'm going to steal this part and say, hey, that's what I want to look for. So I'm going to look for cumulative update for Windows 11, and I'm going to say the update name contains that thing, right? So this is very much like a smart group, right? If I wanted to add additional rules for behavior about it being critical or a reboot, and you can see the kind of common UI element compared to the modular profile things that Josh was showing you before. But basically, the default in here means that we don't care if it's critical or not. With this unchecked, you see we've got the same triple state thing going on there. By default, it will allow a reboot for an update. And in this case, this is a rebooting update. So it's good that I have that turned on. And then additionally, you can use the categories. Now, we have found in practice that the categories that these things are published from Microsoft tend to not be super reliable. So I might not use category too much, but you can use these in addition. So you could say that this is, I believe in this case, it was a security update, right? But if none are selected, as it says here at the bottom, then all categories are included. So this policy, when I save this, and I do have to give it a name, right? So I'm going to call it cumulative update automation, we'll call it, right? And maybe I'll even say specifically it's for Windows 11, right? So when we save that, it's just another file set, of course, but it's treated a little differently. And I clicked save, didn't I? I did indeed. Oh, there we go. Click save. So that policy is going to show here. And this is a file set that I can assign to a device. So I'm going to go ahead and create a deployment. Now I'm using deployments explicitly here, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit too. But I'm going to create a deployment, and I'm going to include that file set. It's already in here. And I'm going to include just my little test device here. So I'm just going to do one device. I'm going to include that original. And then I'm going to call this cumulative updates. And that's just going to be a direct installation. So push. When I say OK to that, and I update the model, of course, I'm going to get the notification about the model being updated. You'll see a new notification up here on the right from the topic we talked about before. There's my notification. But when I go and look at this client now and search for it and force it to verify, you'll see first I'm going to show you what you're not going to see. What you're not going to see, if you've not used policies before, is that the policies do not show in file systems. They're a very small file set. They have their own view. So here within client info for this device, I'm going to see it under policies. So you can see we've got a feature request in to add the name here. So we see the name of the policy, but this is the new policy that I've added. And that's it. So I've assigned this. Let's assume that I wanted to do this for all devices in the environment. I would just assign this policy to all Windows devices, and I'm done. Every device is going to patch. It's not going to create a file set. It's simply going to ask the Windows Update agent on the devices to install any patch that matches that name. You will not see anything except in software updates. For when you look at any particular device that's missing, you would see missing becomes installed, but otherwise it's not treated like a file set. It's just a policy. We're assigning a policy to auto update this version. You can check it within the FileWave client log though, and in the client log you're going to see entries like this where it's automatically downloading auto install updates, and one update were automatically installed. And you may say, hey, that's not granular enough control over what I want. Well, that's true. This is the set it and forget it type of deployment. I think the safer route is what we're going to talk about here in a second. And Josh is going to pick up the topic now and talk about how we can make the other method where you do actually create file sets and you do assign them to devices. What have we done in 16.2, Josh, that makes that a little bit simpler?
Okay, so let's show off this new thing in software updates. So you're going to see this automation rules over here. This little button. You're going to see that a lot of these buttons are new, and Tony's going to talk about this obsolete one next. But what you'll see is things will come in, right? And in this case, I have new. So these are things that are newly known to the server, which is a status that didn't exist before. If you scroll all the way to the right, you'll see is new is a column. That's what determines, if it's in this list. Let's see all updates, and you'll see is new is no. I can right click and mark as new. And, that would be if you wanted it to show as new. And why would you want it to show as new? Because that's an important part of the automations. So when I have these file sets, and this is going to be new file sets for Windows where there's not already a created file set, every kind of thing, so all these things maybe I want to consider making a file set for. I could, right click and create file set, just like in the past, but this automation rule, think of this like it will sweep through all the new things, and then it will put them wherever you say. So for instance, I say, don't care about drivers, put Defender updates in my Windows Defender updates group, and anything that doesn't match should show up in this unfiled group that I have. So when you first go in here, there won't be a default group. Once you set it though, it's picked, and I don't think you can clear it. Once you've picked one, it's picked. You can change it. Like I could pick iOS, but I couldn't say to clear this. So
Josh, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So with this automation, what's this actually do? What's the automation doing? Is this assigning the updates to devices, or what's it actually? What's the automation accomplishing?
It could be because when I play this, the Defender updates are going to end up in Defender updates. The unfiled is going to end up in unfiled. It's just, if you think about where you would normally put the updates, and that could be that maybe things should go into like an alpha testing group or something, right? So instead of having to create these and pick where to put them, I always put them in the same place. So if you look at file sets and
Oh, so you're
Windows,
saying that this automation is for creation of the file sets to just make it a little bit easier to create them based on a rule that you set, right?
yep,
So it'll
yes,
create them, and then depending on where you create them, there could be automation from there as well.
yeah. So see, there's
Okay.
nothing in unfiled. There's nothing in Defender updates at this moment. I'll just update model just because I purged that stuff out just to be sure of things. So now I go back to software updates. I've got the new, and these rules will only apply to ones that are flagged as new, which new updates will be. Uh, if I run the automation, it'll say it ran. Now, one thing you'll notice in this current iteration of this is that it won't look like anything left initially. But if I go back here and come back, you'll see they're gone. They've been flagged as not new anymore. They did make a file set, so they don't qualify for this anymore. So when I go to file sets, you'll see there are the Defender updates, and now there are updates in unfiled because I put the definitions in here. I guess I had an OS update that went in here, and I have these unfiled here. So you can kind of predefine where you want them to end up, so that
So
you
in
don't
this
have.
case, if I didn't want to be real granular with say Windows Defender updates, I'd probably have that file set group in an association already with all Windows devices, or
Yeah,
uh, and this isn't a Windows specific thing. This automation, you can do it for other platforms as well. It's just we have a whole bunch of Windows patches, oddly, uh, available to us. So you could actually assign that an association or a deployment ahead of time. So the automation creates it, and the only thing that's required then is a model update, right?
yeah,
For to actually apply to devices, and then something like unfiled in your example, clearly just by the name of it, you're not actually associating that to anything. You're saying, okay, from here, it's a manual process of what I want to do with them. Do I want to assign them to my alpha group, to my beta group, to production? What do I want to do, right?
yeah, yeah. And I would say there's more of a variety of Windows patches. Like more different types. Whereas when you think about updates on the Apple side, which I don't, because I have 26 devices in, there's not really updates yet, but you'd see things like iPad OS, 26.1, 26.2. Like you don't really have definition updates, and so there's a lot less variety. So that's why it makes more sense to me that this is a Windows topic in general. So that was the automations. It just kind of creates them. It saves you from having to create file set and picking, where they are, and, picking, like, let's say I'm picking all of them, create file set. You can just preset where you want it to be, and boom, they'll appear there.
All right. I think we have one more topic on the software update side of things. If you want to hand it back over.
Yeah, I will put it back
So
to you.
so as Josh mentioned, one of the things that happens over time, clearly you've seen it if you have managed updates, and this is a demo server, so we don't have a ton in here. But if we look, we'll see, hey, all those file sets that he just created, well, those are pain in the behind later, right? So these Defender antivirus updates, I don't care about these things past today. Today I care about today's, and tomorrow I don't care about yesterday's, right? That's just the way these kind of updates work. Others I care about for a longer period of time, but even this cumulative update, say for September of 2025, I don't care about that when we get likely anyway. I don't care about it when we get to April of 2026. So I don't need that file set kind of hanging around for forever if I do in fact create it. Now, one thing is that with the change on the Windows side, well, on both platforms, well, all platforms for that matter, the updates don't now take a lot of disk space, so you don't have to worry about the size of them stored on disk. But just from a clutter perspective, it's annoying to have all of these things in here if you don't need them. So the team have worked on a new concept here in the software update view of an obsolete file set cleanup, right? And you can see this probably going further to more than just software updates, maybe this could actually apply to some other things too as a concept. But basically what we have, and the deletion that Josh did before kind of cleared a lot of this stuff out, but now there's this view that allows you to see what file sets are no longer being requested. So you'll see here at the top, file sets considered obsolete due to no client requesting them in the past 180 days. So I can safely see this and say, hey, no device has requested this, so I can select it and I can delete that selected file set. Right. And that is helpful because it just allows me to do cleanup, and it's not really risky because once I delete that, if a device did happen, of course, with a Defender update, it's never going to do that again. But if it was something where a new device came on board and it was requesting the thing, well, guess what? It's going to come right back in that new thing that we were looking at before. So it's going to come in as a new thing, and you'll know, right? So it's not just kind of a do it once and forever hold your peace. You will know if some new device comes in and requests again. So you can go through, clean up old software updates, get them out of the list. Of course, any software update is still going to show all history. And if you look at any individual device, like if we go to client info for this device, we're going to see its own personal software update history. And here we'll still see all of those, even if we remove the file set. So there's no worries about that, but it allows you to do some cleanup. Additionally, you may have noticed that it said 180 days. Well, that is controllable within preferences on the software updates tab. You'll see there's a new option here that allows you to choose what your window is. So maybe you're aggressive and you say it's 30 days. I don't know if I have any that apply in 30 days. Probably not, since Josh just did that cleanup. But if we go back and look at software updates and look at obsolete, we don't have any new ones. But you can see here that it's now changed to 30 days. So it just allows for some cleanup, which is actually super helpful from just a housekeeping perspective. So that's kind of the third and final change on software update within version 16.2 here. And I'm going to talk about another topic that you may have noticed while we've been demoing things here. You may notice over here on the left that we've got fewer things than normal, right? We talked about some of the new notification stuff, but we're doing a lot of focus on what we can do to simplify the user interface. So there's stuff that you're not going to see in my environment. For instance, you may notice that you see deployments and not associations. Well, that's because if you're in a new environment for FileWave, associations are turned off by default. Eventually, not before too long, we're going to be moving to deployments completely. We've got some great, exciting stuff we'll talk about probably next time related to deployments and how we're going to make them even better than how associations are. So eventually we'll be getting rid of them. But there's no reason for a new customer to FileWave to start with associations when we know we're going to be moving to deployments. So you'll notice that associations does not view here and deployments does. That is configurable within preferences. So you'll see that I can actually make associations show here. I can show associations, right? And say, yeah, I want to show them, or and then if I say, okay, I'll see associations in there. So there's a yes or no on associations. You may notice that iOS inventory is no longer in this list. We've deprecated that entirely. That was a really old view of things that wasn't really useful for much. So we've just gotten rid of that and made sure that the functionality for, managing iOS devices exists in the client view. So that's gone. And then there are two more things that you may notice I don't see. I don't see anything in this view about boosters, and I don't see anything about imaging. And the reason I don't see either of those things is because I don't have either of those things in this environment. So by default, in version 16.2, if you're managing only iOS devices, boosters aren't a thing for you, well, you're no longer going to see that boosters item over here on the left. So just decluttering a little bit, and you're not going to see imaging either. But as soon as you add either a booster or an IVS, an imaging server, so I'll show you that here. If I go to imaging, you can see that immediately upon my adding an imaging server, right? And it doesn't have to be real. It's just a FACO thing. As soon as I add that and say, okay, to preferences, I get imaging showing here in the UI. So we're doing a number of things to simplify the UI and make it as streamlined as we can be. There's no reason to show extra stuff. Eventually, we'll get down to the platform level. If you're not managing Android, for instance, maybe we'll hide some of the Android options. And maybe when you go to a view, if there's nothing in it, it'll tell you, hey, here's how you create new stuff. So for existing customers, though, it does at least declutter things a little bit with removing boosters and imaging if you're not using them, and iOS inventory. And with that, I think, Josh, you're talking about IDP next, aren't you?
I believe I am.
Okay, well, back over to you.
So, IDP. So some people might use LDAP with FileWave to synchronize data in, right? And you like to be able to get fields from the LDAP, and so a similar concept now exists with IDP. So, like in my lab, I have, and I can actually show you. So in my lab, I may have to log in again. Of course I do.
What's that password again, Josh?
Yeah, it's Bob. Had a baby, it's boy. It's so I have these users, and you'll notice that I'm really not consistent about username. There's first name, some first initial, last 7 letters, and then so this is kind of a mess in my Keycloak, but on purpose. And my Keycloak, so for instance, for Jane. So Jane is Jane Smith. She has an email address, and I want to be able to see this information in FileWave. And perhaps I might also want some other information to come in as well. So in my example, I just kind of stuck to the stock Keycloak fields. It also works for Okta, Google, and Entra, which was Azure, is now Entra. And I'll show you how I got this information in. So
I thought Azure was now ADE. Oh no, that was something different, wasn't it?
So, I've configured my server to use Okta. So when I log in, I can do Okta. When I enroll devices, or I said Okta because I don't know why. I configured it for Keycloak. And so I can both log into my server and find out some information about devices. So, we have this enrollment username. So when you think about like iPads and Macs in particular, you can always right click and set the enrollment username. There's ways to bulk import it to change it as well. At enrollment time, if you've set the ADE enrollment profile to prompt, then the enrollment username can get set when that device is coming in. And so this data is here from Keycloak. And I don't really have to do anything except make sure the enrollment username was set either through enrollment or through manually setting it. So let's say I made this one Josh.Levitsky like the last one is, right? So now this one will be Josh Levitsky as soon as it refreshes, but I'll just jump and you'll see it's now Josh Levitsky, but this is still Jane Smith's information. This syncs on a schedule like most things. But if I want this to update right now, let's say I did a bunch of updates to what the enrollment usernames were. There is in preferences, you'll see a new thing in inventory. There is a schedule sync button for IDP custom fields. And I'll schedule sync. And last time I did it pretty quick. We'll see if it does that this time. Let's see if I go off it. I come back. Oh, look, now it's Josh Levitsky. So now the 2 bottom ones are Josh Levitsky. And all the information has updated. So, but if I did nothing, then it will once a day update anyway. So if you're about to pull a report and you're actively kind of setting this stuff and you want to be the most accurate, you might want to force a sync right before you're making that report just to make sure that everything is the most current if you go through a lot of device trades. So now, how did these fields appear? I go to Assistance and I go to Custom Fields, and I created these as a IDP field. So this is a new type of field that you can pick. And you don't have to do too much. You give it a name and an internal name, just like every other field. Give it a description, just like every other field. And this email at the bottom is from Keycloak. So in Keycloak, I believe that I have, we're going to see how good I remember where it is.
Is it tokens?
User profile. There it is. So email is email. So if I wanted first name, then first name lines up, and it would come in to that. It would come into this field, and so whenever there's a sync, we go through and we put in the email into this field, and thus it's usable. So if you use an IDP with FileWave, Keycloak, Google, Okta, or Entra, you may want to try these things so that you can get data in. I'll say right now, Windows systems will consider the logged in user for the LDAP sync, but for IDP sync, that's not in this iteration. So think of it more for iPads and Macs is where it's going to be helpful. But maybe we could expand on that and consider the Windows username as well, or extend enrollment username to Windows in the future.
So I'm guessing that's probably pretty valuable data, though, for things like smart groups. Like you're showing it in a report, but you're gonna and you're likely not going to do a smart group based off of somebody's last name. But I saw that you had department in there as an attribute. That would be something that would be pretty handy to have, to be able to do smart groups and such. And maybe even combining that idea with the earlier topic you talked about quick evaluating smart groups. You might use that for an onboarding process even.
Yeah, and so like things like the first name, last name, and email, you might find helpful for. So some people use Umbrella is a proxy that I'm aware of, where I believe you configure it using their email address in the profile that sets up Umbrella, and so now I have their email address for sure from the IDP. So then I don't have to import that into FileWave. If I'm setting up an email profile, well, I have their first name, last name, and email. So I can pre-populate that because you can use variables.
VPN proxies, proxies, web filters, etc. All of those different personal attributes are pretty helpful for that as well. So that's the variable substitution that I've always loved the name parameterized profiles. It just really rolls off the tongue, right? With the alliteration. So, well, great. That's a good add as well. And I think we have one more specific topic, right, that I'm covering, Josh?
Yeah, Windows imaging. So I'll switch it to you.
Yeah. So on the Windows side of things, this isn't so much a feature, it's just kind of an addition that we've added, a little enhancement, if you will. So Windows imaging can be a little bit confusing when it comes to, hey, is it working? Right, we had a lot of folks that reach out to us, and it pretty much happens with a lot of schools anyway. A lot of devices get imaged over the summer, and you don't do it that much during the year. Or if you do it during the year, it's maybe one device and not multiples at a time. And we are aware of an issue that's been reported in the field about imaging multiple devices not being so speedy. I'm glad to say that we identified what the issue with that was yesterday. So we're working for a fix for that in 16.2 as well. But we've added a new thing in support of imaging. It doesn't change anything about the way Windows imaging works, but we've added a new set of tools in 16.2 to the imaging solution in iPerf and IFTop. And so I'm good, just as a reminder, this AI chatbot is in the product, and I don't think I need to remind you because tons of people are using it. We see the metrics for that behind the scenes, but I can actually just even ask it here, how do I use iPerf? Or what's it for, right? And let's see if it gives me an answer. And of course, I can go to the knowledge base as well. I'll show you the article in the back. But this is related to testing what your possible performance Could be, right? So is imaging slow? That sometimes can be a hard question because the network plays into that, the physical devices that you're trying to image play into that. So we have added 2 tools within version 16. They're there automatically, but you can add them manually as well if you're on 16.1.1 now. And those 2 tools are IFTop and iPerf. I'll explain IFTop here first, and then we'll go back to our chat bot and look at what iPerf is. IFTop allows you to run this tool on the IBS, and it allows you to see the activity, network activity, inbound and outbound to the IBS. So basically, it's a real-time monitoring tool for looking at connectivity to the IBS. So if you're sitting and looking at a device, and I can't remember if we've got a screenshot in here for part clone, I don't think we do, but when you're imaging a device, of course, part clone shows you how the imaging process is going. But if you're sitting centrally and you're not in front of those devices, you can't see part clone. This is basically the equivalent of looking at part clone process from the server side. So you'll be able to see what the transfer rate is for any particular device. Now, in this case, this particular device is not imaging at the time. You'd see a much higher rate of transfer. But this shows you, hey, am I spreading my imaging bandwidth appropriately? So IFTop is one tool that's included. You can install it for version 16.1. It's included by default in version 16.2. The other tool that we added is called iPerf, and iPerf, let's see, I think that chat went somewhere. There it is. What's iPerf? How do I use iPerf? You can use iPerf to test network performance. So this is not an IVS specific test. It doesn't test the IVS, but what it does test is from an endpoint. It allows you to connect to the IVS to see what your potential bandwidth capability is from the client. So if we scroll down here, I think it shows an example. Right, so here's an example of running iPerf as a client, telling it the IP of the IBS, and I want to run 10 clients for 30 seconds, and it will tell you what speed you get back for each of those clients. And so basically, it's telling you your theoretical capability on the networking side. And then based on what you get in that result, that tells you, okay, if it comes back and overall you're getting 1 gig, well, that means you're going to be able to transfer about 105 to 115 megabytes per second, right? And then that math is then combined with the number of devices you're imaging concurrently. So it just gives you an idea about whether you can measure whether imaging is slow or not for any particular environment. So it's a really helpful tool. It's a lot for our support folks and also really helpful for you as well. And I think that's the last specific kind of big thing we had on the list, but I think you had a kind of a list of a bunch of other little odds and ends, right, Josh?
Yeah. So over here, so security and performance. So I just wanted to mention these things. We usually mention them for any given release. The third-party upgrades that we do upgrade a lot of core things. So you'll want 16.2 for the features, but you'll also want it for security updates. But as well, you'll want it because we've made uploading file sets to Central faster. We use less RAM for the LDAP sync, and management of custom fields consumes less resources as well. So, internally at FileWave, we're always considering security, but we've been spending time on performance improvements. So lots of positive things.
And of course, bug fixes and everything as well too.
Yes, many bug fixes. So I'll go on to this one.
All right. Well, just to do a little recap of what we've covered, here so far today. And again, this is for version 16.2. We expect it to be with early adopters soon. You'll get notification within the FileWave admin. If you're on 16.1, you'll get a notification when we go to early adopters. Early adopters is an optional program for you if you're on premise, and some folks are enrolled in that in a hosted environment as well. But you can always ask if you're hosted if you want to be an early adopter. You can just open up a support ticket and ask for that. But you'll get notification when we're in early adopter phase with 16.2, which we expect soon. What were the things that we covered? Well, we've got the new Granular Apple profiles, which we're really excited about. We've got that expanded language support and a way for you to give us, suggestions on translations. We've got support for the new Apple features for the Apple Fall release. We've got that new admin notification channel. We are really excited about that because we think it's going to be kind of just almost like an RSS feed for the changes that are going on in your environment. We've got those new quick evaluating onboarding smart groups, 3 or 4 new changes in OS patching to try to continue to improve that. We've got several things we're doing on the UI simplification side of things. We've got that IDP data synchronization that we've added, and some Windows imaging performance kind of tools in there, and a bug fix that we're including in 16.2 for that as well. So we've got a lot of great stuff, and it's been my pleasure and Josh's pleasure for us to host you here today. Hopefully this format has worked for you well. And on behalf of myself and all of the folks here from FileWave, we thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. We are happy that you were able to join us, and hopefully you'll be able to join us again very soon. So on behalf of all of us, we thank you. So everybody wave hello. Thanks everybody from a FileWave perspective. And last thing I'll mention on this very last slide is please do join us for those Discord events. There's a link to that here. Obviously, you're able to get to our YouTube channel and check out our event calendar because there's lots of stuff that you can join us for. You can both chat with us on Discord and join us for those live customer events. Thank you everybody so much for joining, and we hope to see you again next quarter.